Hi guys, so we're going to have a look at a paragraph together, and it's a paragraph that we're going to be able to use for our piece of writing this week. So obviously we know that we're writing a persuasive advert to persuade people to go to visit some attractions in Athens, and you've also had a chance looking at your home learning sheet to go through some of the parenthesis video, all the information sheets, and just a little bit of a sort of memory jog really of the things that we've done before in class. So I'm going to show you how to now practically apply that in your paragraph. And actually, if you've chosen to do Temple of Olympian Zeus in your writing, you can just nick this paragraph afterwards, so it's quite useful. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip. When you're including parenthesis, a really good place to start is to go through your piece of writing and find the nouns. Now, obviously it needs to be the nouns that are worthwhile expanding, otherwise there's no point giving the extra information. Because remember, our reader wants to feel sort of informed, they want to feel empowered by the fact that they've got that knowledge, so it has to be worthwhile. So I've gone through and I've highlighted some of what I think are the really useful nouns in this paragraph. I've gone for the temple itself, which is obvious because that's what we're talking about. I want to talk about the columns because obviously that's an important part of the architecture. Mentioning that it's a temple because that's sort of where the history comes from. Back to the pillars again, like I say, they're significant. I thought maybe we could talk about specifically Zeus because that's where it gets its name from, and people would have heard of him but might not necessarily know why. And then I thought this final one about the Arch of Hadrian, because as we said in our features before, what we'd like to include in our writing is signposting our tourists on to another point of interest afterwards. So that might be a good one just to finish on expanding. So we're going to have a go now expanding some of these using parentheses together. So the first one that I've looked at is, I'm going to look at Zeus. So now we've decided on a noun, the next tip is to add information which is precise and relevant. We don't really want to waffle on for sentence after sentence. Just one small clause that really gives that important information is all we need. So before we do that, we don't want to repeat anything. We want to make sure that it fits in with the rest of the sentences around it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to our noun, then we're going to read before it and read after it to make sure that we know the context of the bit that we're expanding. So, walk in the same footsteps as the ancient Greeks did, as they brought offerings to the great Zeus. Right, so I'm going to now expand this noun by adding that extra information in parenthesis. So the information needs to be precise and relevant. So I had a little look up some information about Zeus before this actually, and I've decided that I'm just going to go with something really simple, the fact that he is the god of thunder and religion. I'm just going to see if that fits. So walk in the same footsteps as the ancient Greeks did, as they brought offerings to the great Zeus, god of thunder and religion. Nice. So finally, I've done the first bit, I've got my noun, I've added the information that's precise and relevant. Now I need to decide on that punctuation. Right, so the three types of punctuation I can use are commas, they're the obvious one that we often put our clauses in. Brackets are the other one. Brackets tend to be used when it's technical information given or something really concise, so something quite short. Or you can use dashes. So I'm going to decide, it's quite a short piece of information, it's not too lengthy, it goes at the end of my sentence, which means I might not want to use commas, so I'm going to go with a bit of a bracket here. So there's my extra information about Zeus in my brackets. Okay, so let's have a go at another one together now. So let's have a look at the pillars. What I'd like you to do now is pause the video, think about the next step. So we've chosen our noun, the next step is going to be adding information which is precise and relevant. Okay, if you're not quite sure what the pillars look like, you might need this to help you, and that's fine. So I'd like you to pause your video, and on a piece of paper or in your workbook, could you now think of some extra information that you could add to for me about the pillars? So this is what they look like. We'll just read before it. As you wander around looking at the last 15 remaining pillars, you can get a true sense of the grand impression it must have made in its day. Okay, so using the image, can you now expand on the pillars? Pause your video. Okay, so what sorts of information have we come up with? You could say something to do with the height of the pillars, the design of the pillars, the way they stand, their closeness or their proximity to each other you could have mentioned. I've gone for the height, because I thought that's quite important, because they're quite impressive. That is really tall and is something that sounds quite imposing and quite impressive. So I've gone for looking at the last 15 remaining pillars, which stand at 17 metres high. You can get a true sense. So I've chosen that, I've got my noun, got my precise information. Now I need to decide on my punctuation. So I've already used brackets in this, so I don't really want to use them again. It's very important when you're using parentheses that you don't overuse it, otherwise it really ruins the cohesion and the flow of your piece of writing. So since I've used brackets, I don't want to use them. And actually the way it's written is a certain type of clause. That which is actually a relative pronoun. So I'm going to use it as a relative clause, and I'm going to put commas in there to separate it. So I think that fits best. Let's have a look as you wander around, looking at the last 15 remaining pillars, which stand at 17 metres higher. You can get a true sense of the grand impression. Yes, I'm really happy with that. Right, so I've got 2 bits of parentheses used in my paragraph so far for extra information. I'm going to leave you with this, which is quite simply just all of the nouns highlighted, and I'm going to put this PowerPoint on the home learning page for you so that you can use it as a starting point for yours. Hopefully the notes you've made will help you to carry on. If not, you can always steal some of my ideas, but I hope that's been helpful and you've now got a good idea of how you can apply it practically in your writing. Can't wait to read some of your work.